Hey, I'm Dr. Pilet, and welcome to the last and final class for our anger management program. You know, this program is based on 12 individual classes, and as we work our way through each of those topics, you're given information that helps you to learn a little bit and develop your understanding of conflict and anger, and with that, some tools. Well, this is class 12. This is the one that we bring all those materials together, and so part of this what you're going to do today is I'm going to work you through that stuff and going to sort of develop this and how do you use this material. If you remember, you started off with the first class, which was understanding the experience of anger. And in that class, if you will, I discussed how we express anger, express it, how we suppress it, and how we control it. Now look, there's no mystery to the expression of anger. You know, you see it in the tone of a person's voice, you see it in their facial expressions and body language, and you can tell it by the way that they assault you, by the words that they use, okay? So facial expressions, body language, tone, words. Now, when we experience anger and when we express it, obviously there are times that it is beneficial. And beneficial would be if in fact I'm elevating my emotional state to the point that you recognize that I'm agitated, aggravated, and if you will, now I begin shifting to what we call problem solving. I like to remind you of this old saying about any idiot can make a bad situation worse, but it takes skill to make one better. I'd also like to remind you that 50 years of good living can be ruined by 10 seconds of stupidity. So the experience of anger is when we get at risk, when we're at risk. So as I express anger, that's one way that we experience it. As I suppress it, many people confuse suppressed anger with, if you will, the idea that I did not express my anger. That is, I controlled the expression of anger. So you'll hear people say, hey, you know, I took a time out. You're so proud of me. Look at that. I did anger control. Well, taking a time out is the control of the expression of anger, but it's not anger control. Why? Because problem solving didn't occur. I didn't problem solve one iota. All I did was not talk about it. I took a time out. So the idea that the more I store this negative energy in me, the more I suppress it, the more difficult it gets over time. You know, in many ways, this is similar to a person that is gaining weight. They're eating more calories than their body needs, and therefore they're storing body fat. Negative energy, the idea that I'm turning my back on a situation, I'm not problem solving, and as I continue to store that negative energy, eventually you become at risk to going from a suppressed person that takes time outs to a person that's highly reactive. As you moved into the second class, from that idea of the experience of anger and express it, suppress it, or control it, we moved into topics, people, and situation. You know, a lot of us do pretty good unless we're around certain people. Certain people tend to peg our meters. They just are the wrong person for me to be around. They push my buttons. They bring up certain topics that are hot topics. Sometimes we call those landmines. Well, I do okay with certain people unless they address certain topics. But also, please remember, in that class we discussed situations that expose you to people and topics. Situations we commonly run into are court appearances, divorce proceedings. I go to a family reunion and there's people that I just don't get along with. So there's this situation develops where there's people and, if you will, topics that are all expressed, and they elevate my risk. They increase my risk. So part of that class was to learn how to gauge, how to predict, how to look ahead and see when you might be at risk, and, if you will, determine those high-risk topics, people, and situations, and try to, you know, stay away from it. When people do this thing called scorecarding, the list of things that I bring up selectively to punish you, that's when a person, if you will, is bringing up a topic to incite you into rage, you know? As we moved into the idea of stress, we did 2 classes on stress. I'm very concerned that people understand that there's negative stress and positive stress. Negative stress tends to erode us. It tends to wear us down, negative stress. I hate my job. I'm there every day. I'm working overtime. I'm not having holidays and vacations because, you know, we're under a great deal of pressure at work to perform. Negative stress, I don't get along with my ex, and every time we get together, there's another argument. Negative stress. Positive stress, the things that you do that recharge your battery. You know, I do really good on weekends because I go fishing. And there's something tranquil and peaceful about fishing. What I wanted you to learn from that class is that many people, when they get so overwhelmed with long-term negative stress, they become so dull, they become so unhappy that they quit doing the short-term things that they really enjoyed. They don't want to go out. They don't want to go out to the beach, and they don't want to go out with their friends. They just sort of isolate and remove themselves. So that idea that as stress becomes increasingly negative, it's not unusual for people to stop doing the things that truly were good things, positive stress, anticipation of things that you like to do. Now, when I ask you to reduce your stress levels, I ask you to recognize that there's the long-term stress, which would be indebtedness. I've got a lot of bills to pay. I'm going through separation and I only get to see my children once a week, once every other week. Long-term stress is, weeks that go to months that in fact, you feel the load on you. You feel the pressure. I've had clients where their parents were sick and that sickness was extended over months, if you will, and that constant pressure of trying to be there to nurture their parents, but be there also to nurture their children, it wore them down. But I wanted you to learn, if you will, from that class to differentiate, the three types of problems: those I can solve, those I can't solve, and those I can mediate. I can improve it in some way or fashion, and if you will, bring it to a better place. When we talk about long-term stress, if it's a problem that's not solvable, then you've got to work through meditation and thought stopping to put it out of your mind. Because we do this thing called squirrel caging. When I think about something incredibly negative and I ruminate it over and over again, I begin to believe it's happening right now, and that has a huge negative effect on your personality and your ability to deal with the present situation. All of us become highly reactive when we squirrel cage and spin negative thoughts and we begin to feel we're losing. Short-term stress, things that we can resolve moment to moment. I'm driving to work, I had a flat tire. Well, long-term stress, I still have rent to pay and bills to pay, and my mom and dad are sick, but I push those things out of my mind to work on how do I solve this one problem. I just need to solve that the tire is flat, and once I get through with that, then I'm going to move about my day. See, the idea that we're going to differentiate between long-term and short-term, and always be aware that the long-term, which is very enduring, tends to make you more susceptible to spikes, short-term spikes. And those short-term spikes can get you into what we call overwhelm. In that class, we discussed, I'm in overwhelm when I become so caught up in all that's going on, I begin to feel like I don't have the resources to deal with this. I don't have the financial resources, I don't have the spiritual resources, I don't have the social resources. And you might have heard, if you will, the term about going postal. Oh my God, he was doing great, but he lost it. That notion that once we get into that very high, stressful place, we become more reactive, we are less tolerant, and we truly put ourselves in harm's way as you expose yourself to that notion of dealing with this load that's on you and reacting in a harmful way. Again, short-term, long-term stress, addressing those problems I can solve, those I can't, working on meditation and relaxation techniques to get that peaceful place and bring down your stress level. As we finished those 4 classes, we went into handling tough situations, and that topic was about criticism, because we work and live in a highly critical world. And if you don't think so, listen to the news, read the newspaper. My God, all day, every day, we're bombarded with criticisms of the world around us, political issues, the war in Iran, the war in Iraq. There's always negative bombardment. But what I do want you to be aware of is that a lot of times we become indirectly critical, and we do it so repetitiously and we do it so regularly, we really don't even realize we're doing it. The idea that you should know how I feel, and that when I talk to you about problems in my life, you give me indirect criticism. I heard a lady the other day telling one of her children, she said, you're just like your dad. You're sloppy and you're a pig, just like your dad. See, that's indirect criticism, because if I said you're sloppy and you're a pig, that's direct. But the idea that we fill our life with indirect criticism. A man walks in the door, dinner's not prepared like he thought it should be, and he makes a statement about, you know, I really admire that guy I work with because he's always bragging about how he comes home and there's a hot meal, without saying, oh my God, there's no hot meal here, indirect criticism. But we worked through that idea about how a lot of us show through facial expressions and body language what's on our mind. And we don't even say a word. So it's not uncommon for your partner to say, are you okay? And you know, we get this response, well, oh yeah, I'm okay, I'm fine. When in fact we radiated that negative energy through our facial expressions and body language. That class was all about say what you mean what you say, don't do direct criticism, don't do indirect criticism, focus on problem solving, identify the need that you want, work on the solution, but get away from punishing the world around us in critical ways. As we moved into conflict style, if you will, I define conflict as a difference between two people over physical, emotional, or perceptual space. And in that class, we talked about how some people are just agitators. They're going to increase the amount of energy in a given situation. They're going to tick people off. They're going to say things that are meant to prod or to push a person to react. Some people are competers. They listen to collect information to prove you wrong, but they really don't listen. Some people are avoiders. I don't like to argue. I don't want to argue. I'll do anything not to argue. And in order not to argue, I don't go home. I stay away. I turn off my cell phone. Or I just do the silent treatment, which is go into the back bedroom, close the door, and I refuse to talk to you. If you will, this whole idea of conflict style was to assess yourself to see what is your preferred style for a certain topic and a certain situation. So understand, agitators, competers, avoiders, accommodators. Accommodators, they just want to make you happy. They just go through life with this notion that I love you, I care about you, let me make you happy. But accommodators become exhausted over time as their energy is depleted, and it's not unusual for an accommodator to become highly reactive because they do get to the point where they say, when's it my turn? Okay? As we move through those, we go into the two that I work so hard for you to be in touch with. It's just collaboration. How do I co-labor with you to find common ground that we agree upon? And then compromise, sometimes I call that grandma's rule. If you do this for me, I'll do that for you. And if you remember, my grandma used to say, I tell you what, Gordy, if you get in that bedroom and you clean it up, when you come back, I'll have a nice snack for you. You do this for me, I'll do this for you. In that class, we did the conflict styles test, and I asked you to put a specific topic in your mind. And while you thought about that topic specific to a person, we rated you and we saw what your typical conflict style is for that particular person, that particular topic. The utility of that particular class was just to make you aware, you know, to bring it all together, that certain times I'm at risk, and I'm at risk because there's this person and this topic, and when I'm there, I tend to be an agitator, I tend to be a competitor. And then we gave you some tools on how to bring that into collaboration and compromise. As you work through conflict style, we now went into that idea of how do we deal with intense emotions, and we began to discuss the notion of being assertive. And what does that look like? Because I discussed passive, if you will, which is never going to help anybody, and aggressive, which of course pushes people away. But in that class, we reviewed what it takes to be assertive and how do I prevent myself from communicating in hostile, or if you will, aggressive ways, and focus on problem solving. As I worked into this idea of personality testing, if you remember, we did the Myers-Briggs personality sorter. Personality sorters are useful because they enable us to understand each other at a much higher level. Generally speaking, we've found that across our society, about 50% of our population are extroverts, 50% of our population are introverts. Extroverts. I just enjoy life, and my energy is always outward bound. I want to go to football games or baseball games. I want to go to the beach. I want to find people to talk to and do things by having good discussions, and my energy is always out. And don't get me wrong, extroverts can in fact go home and have a quiet evening, but over time they've got to discharge that energy, that external energy by which they're interacting with the outside world. As opposed to my introverts, which there's no diminished intellectual capacity or no diminished ability to socialize. They just enjoy their private time. They enjoy their quiet moments. I have a doctor physician who's an extrovert. I have a doctor physician who's an introvert. One gets off work and can't wait to go out to see friends, play some golf, go fishing. The other one can't wait to get off work to go home because, you know, they're writing a book, they love to paint, they play guitar. I enjoy my quiet time. Extroverts, introverts, okay? Studies have shown that marital couples tend to match up that way. Extroverts don't tend to marry extroverts. Introverts don't tend to marry introverts. We tend to be compatible. Extroverts tend to be attracted to introverts. Why? Because you offset me in ways that add the quality of my life and pleasure. But there was one more quality that we brought into this, and that is, are you a thinker or are you a feeler? Thinkers collect facts, collect figures, process information, draw deductions. They're logical, right? Feelers, loyalty-based, emotions-based. They bond to people. They look forward to dependability, and they're always passionate people that are intimately involved in all those emotional components of life. Do you do both? Yes, you do. You do, but we tend to favor one or the other. So when an extrovert thinker is speaking, the extrovert thinker is going to tell you about facts and figures, common sense and logic, black and white logic, why they came to the deductions they did. An extrovert feeler, oh wait, I love football. There's nothing more intriguing than the thrill of a game and not knowing who is going to win. And boy, when that guy's going for that Hail Mary pass and he catches the ball, oh my God, the joy. Do you see the difference? One, statistics, facts, figures. The other one, passion, glory, loyalty, the experience. Do we do all of the 16 personality and temperament styles? Yes, we do. Extrovert thinker, extrovert feeler, introvert thinker, introvert feeler. Yes, you do, you do. But you have one that you tend to prefer. And in that class, all I wanted you to do was find your comfort zone. Because you have a dominant. If you're an extrovert, fact-based thinker, dominant, you have a secondary. Your secondary might be you're an introvert feeler. So you choose to use whichever tool is the best for you at the time. And if, of course, you do it very well, then you're going to find that personality and temperament testing is a wonderful asset because it helps you to understand yourself and your partner. As we moved through personality and temperament, we got into what I call social phenomena. And part of that started off with this notion of active listening. I am a big believer that most people don't know how to listen. They know how to carry conversations. I tell you about my day and how long and hard it was. You think about that and tell me about, when you've had comparable, sort of parallel things happen to you in your work world about your day. And there we are trading information. Yeah, I went fishing at Gandy Bridge, caught some big fish. Oh, I went there one day and caught nothing. Well, you have to go at the right time where the tide is this way or that way. Oh, well, I know what you're talking about. See, conversation. But active listening, and the technique I taught you, reflective listening, was how to encourage someone to disclose more information by repeating back to them some information that they gave to you that was the last thing said. So if I were to be speaking to you and you asked me how my day was, and I said, you know, it was a wonderful day. I really had a challenging class. A reflective listener would say, and what kind of challenging class did you have? And I would say, you know, I was doing the Myers-Briggs personality disorder, and I find it very difficult. That person might reflect back to me. And so that instrument, in being so difficult, what makes it that way? You see, active listening is a learned skill. We're so caught up on our day-to-day workloads of having conversations or collecting information to be a good supervisor, we really don't have a lot of skills at active listening. So we have a whole class just designed to teach you reflective listening, but I also discuss empathetic listening and empathetic reflective. And those two are reserved, if you will, for people that want to do the advanced stuff, which is, you know, empathetic, which is the type of listening for feelings. Empathetic reflective, I'm reflecting how you feel. These are things used by clergy and therapists and people that have that real desire to move into that emotional direction. However, for this class, reflective. Then I asked you, if you will, we got into this notion of substance abuse, and we do that because about 60% of all my clients that come to me for anger management do so because they got involved in an altercation, and 6% of those altercations included some mind-altering substance. Beer, alcohol, yeah, most commonly, but also, if you will, amphetamines, things that are that enhance the body metabolically, move us into this higher level of energy. You know, the correlation between intense emotions, anger, fighting, arguing, and substance abuse is so high that we discuss it in that class about, you know, problem solving after a few beers is not a smart thing to do. And oh, by the way, why would I encourage anybody to problem solve with someone that's drinking? And so just that sheer awareness to, if you will, assess where did alcohol or other substances abuse, mind-altering substance, fit into my life, and how does that fit into your life in the big picture? And then finally we get into codependence and caretaking. I'm a big believer that this is a problem. In fact, I have a chapter in my book, Love, Lost, and Found, that you might read called Caretaking versus Caregiving. You know, caretaking, I get so involved in the lives of others that I lose myself. I get so involved in the lives of others that I lose myself. I lend money, I give rides, I listen compassionately to all the things they have to say. I extend myself well beyond what I should in trying to fix their problems. See that? I fix their problems. Take care. I take care of them. I fix their problems. I get so involved in them emotionally, financially, spiritually, socially, that I lose myself. You know, there's a cartoon a few years ago where I saw with the label of a man that was a codependent drowning, and he's going down for the third time as he held his hand up. And as he went down for the third time, they had a little bit of a cloud window that said, as he was thinking to himself, what would they do without me? I'm going to drown. And yet his last thoughts are, what are they going to do without me, when he should be worried about, well, wait a second, what about me? I want to experience life. I want to save my own self. Forget them for now. Let me get out of this problem. And codependents have a way of getting so involved that when you ask them how they're doing, how are you doing, they don't talk about themselves. They talk about the other person. I had a man in my class recently. I said, man, you don't look good. Oh, I'm not. Well, what's going on? Oh, my kids are out of control. They stole money out of my wallet. I went to get in the car and I got a flat tire and the spare is in the trunk and it's flat too because, you know, they didn't fix the flat from the last time. And there he is going through this unbelievable list of all the things that's wrong with his life that were caused by other people that he's taking care of. And I stopped him and I said, look, let's try this one more time. How are you doing? And one more time he repeated himself. And again I stopped him. I said, look, let me role play for you what I want you to do. And he said, go ahead, Doc. And I said, okay. Ask me, how you doing? And I said, well, I'm feeling a lot of anxiety. I really don't know how to set up boundaries. I find myself getting so involved with other people and their issues that on any given day, I don't think about me anymore. I don't think about my finances and my overtime, and I don't think about, well, I need to have some fun. Maybe I should go fishing this weekend, or maybe I should go play disc golf. And I've lost myself, Doc. And when I start to think about myself, I start to feel guilty, because the first thing that hits me is, well, what about all these people that are depending on me? And Doc, I mean, I've come to realize I've lost myself and I don't know how to get myself back. I've come to realize maybe I am a caretaker. Caregiver, I walk the walk with you. I don't carry you. I don't lend you money. I don't give you my car. I don't enable, big word here, enable. You know, we have kids that are supposed to leave home at 17, 18, 19, and there are reasons why they should stay home if they're in school or they're working on a skill or career. But once we get to that point that that child is home and not leaving because they don't want to pay rent, they don't want to have the accepted responsibilities of being an adult with independent living, then we're out of control. We call that enabling. And I've had lots and lots of parents that enable. I had a doctor who was up in Chicago call me here because she was hiring a lawyer to go down to the courthouse here in Tampa to represent her son who had gotten a DUI. And the son was 27 years old. And she asked me, what should she do? What should she do? And I said, you know, let him alone. He'll be fine. He'll figure it out. He'll be in jail for 30 days. He'll get out. Somebody will bond him. He'll start problem solving on his own. But you keep solving all of his problems for him and he'll never grow up. Enabling, rescuing. There she was, trying to rescue him from harm's way. I'll send money. I'll hire a lawyer. Understand caregiving. I walk the walk with you. I brainstorm. I'm there for moral support. Talk to me. I'm your best friend. I love you. I just want to be there for you. I don't want you to forget ever the 5 levels of relationship as you go through these programs, how acquaintances become friends, how friends become companions, how friends become roommates, how roommates become companions, companions become lovers, And don't misunderstand that because I'm emotionally bonded to someone, I call that, if you will, potentially a love relationship, does not mean that I should be enabling or rescuing. And I get people all the time, they say, well, you know, when you love someone, you're supposed to do that. Well, no. Loving someone does not mean you enable or rescue. Loving means you walk the walk with them responsibly. And as they problem solve responsibly, I lend you money, you pay it back. I lend you my car, you lend me your car. There's that trading, that notion of we're working responsibly, okay? So here we are, this is your last class, and this is the one that's called Patterns, Habits, and Relationships. And I've reviewed all these materials. The idea that I know about expressed anger and suppressed anger, and that suppressed anger is building, 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 like a person that's gaining weight. Gets heavier and heavier as I don't problem solve because I'm just holding it in. As I look at that notion of conflict and the idea that I tend to be an avoider or an accommodator, again, that feeds into this whole idea of I'm suppressing. Remember, accommodators can only give so much before they start to say, when is it my turn? And they develop high levels of suppressed anger. When we have this notion of altered states and drinking and enjoying life and kicking back, and we don't realize that, wait, I got people around me that are out of control and I got to push away. I got to get away from this because these topics and these situations, topics and situations aren't good for me. See, and as you're applying all this in today's class, looking at my personality, am I an extrovert? Am I an extrovert thinker? Am I an introvert? Am I an introvert feeler? Assessing my conflict style. Which one am I? And how do I apply this to my life? Putting this as an overlay on stress. Does the stress in my life keep me very close to getting into overwhelm? What is my long-term stress? Am I meditating? Am I working to get my stress levels down? Because you know what? On the problems I can't change, I got to quit thinking about. Remember the 3 ways that we can solve the problems? We can't solve the problems, or we can mediate. Well, when you can't solve a problem, you have to find ways to accept what is and not let it get to you. Please take this information, look across each of these 11 classes building up to today's program, and begin to find ways that I can apply this as I leave here today. Because truly, I gave you knowledge, but I didn't give you wisdom. The wisdom that you develop is how you look over your notes and you apply it to yourself in such a way that brings a better response. Remember, knowledge, quantity of information, wisdom, how I use it to the best economical solution. I got a phone call recently from somebody, just had nothing but praise and thanks. And what had happened was situation, topic, person that typically would have triggered them into some intensity of being an agitator. But his phone call to me was, he realized that his stress made him highly reactive as he was exposed to this person in his life that he'd never been able to get along with because that person was always an agitator. As he made the decision, if you will, to stay away from that person, but when that person came into his proximity, got into his face, so to speak, he did thought stopping, he relaxed, he realized, you know what, any idiot can make a bad situation worse, but it takes skill to make one better. He told me specifically, I remembered your class about bozos, what happens when you deal with people that have lost it, they're out of control. And he also said, I remembered your story about black book memories. The idea that when I get triggered into this intensity that puts me into this place that I do unthinkable things, then I take those black book memories for the rest of my life. And he said, you know, I found my ego was able to release. I wasn't the same person anymore as this person truly tried to push my buttons. Remember, topics, people, topics, situation. I found myself laughing. I found myself getting kind of giddy as I backed up and realized I don't have to do this. And as I found myself feeling this sense of liberation that I'm really not triggered by this, well, it tended to make this person angrier. And now as he got angrier, people were pulling that person away saying, calm down, calm down, calm down. You know, I did a timeout, doc, I left. I didn't have a black book memory. Didn't do anything I regret. Interesting. 2 days passed, I got a phone call from that person. The person called me to apologize because they realized they were out of control. They realized they had crossed boundaries. I didn't respond or react in a way that maybe historically that was the old me. We were able to problem solve and get a solution. And you know what? I owe that to this program and what I learned here. Look, I'm Dr. Pilet. I'm glad you made it through the program. Please apply all these informations. Remember, it's not, what's happened to you. It's how you think about what's happened to you. When you drive the car forward, you can't keep looking in the rearview mirror. You got to look out through the windshield of life. It's where you're going, not where you've been. Thank you for selecting our program, and thank you for working as hard as you have. Again, thank you.